telling stories so bold, from the wild and the cold, from Paradise Creek days to the journeys he raised, sharing lessons he's got. Every tale is the spot, with a voice to be heard, painted clear with each word, living deep in the wild, fearless, free and beguiled, through the nights that he fought and the dreams that he caught. Here he is tonight, the one and only David Scott.
Everybody, welcome to the show, The Real Story with Nathaniel. I have the honor of introducing you to, and if you've seen it before, you know this is going to be a great interview. Our guest here tonight is David Scott, adventurer and author. He spent a year living in the subarctics of Canada with a partner, and well, the story starts bad. We're going to get into all that. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go out and get it. It is called Paradise Creek. It's on Amazon. It's available now. I just got done reading it, and David, great job. It was, for me, a to the point and very present tale of survival and adventure, and just your love of what you were doing, even though you nearly lost your life a time or two or more. Welcome to the show. I'm glad you survived so you could come here and tell us about it, but there were some scary parts in that story.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on. And secondly, thank you for that brilliant intro. It was amazing. I loved it. That was fantastic. Josh. It was brilliant. This whole story kind of started as, at least for me, a bit of a childhood dream. I spent all my time in the outdoors as a kid. When I was very young, my parents got rid of our television set. And so for about 13 years, I grew up without a TV. And this kind of forced me to do other things to entertain myself. And of course, this is at that wonderful time that we all know when pretty much all the children were feral, wild animals running around,
Time.
And so, yeah, when I came home from school, I would disappear into the woods. I would come home at dark, smelling like wood smoke and covered in mud. And
now, were you like me in that you could actually eat off of you knew where every fruit tree was, everything you could eat, where all the onion grass was? You could survive for a full day without going home for food. Were you that kid too?
Pretty much so. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I love that.
Especially out in the woods. It was very much my domain. I loved it out there. I spent all my time out there. And there was one day where I found this arrowhead in a farmer's field. I was maybe 12 years old, something like that. And it just blew my mind that I was holding this thing, knowing the last person that held it was a Native American. And so I just started reading everything I could read and learning about these skills, about how to live, I guess, more primitively in the outdoors. And that's really kind of where all of this started.
Did you have the Foxfire books handy by any chance?
I did.
I had those as a kid, and there was so much knowledge.
Yeah, they're such good books. And so yeah, I would study those. Any book on the subject. One book in particular that really stands out. And I mention this just because I've heard other people interviewed that do similar things, and they all seem to reference this book, and it's My Side of the Mountain, about a kid who runs away in the Catskill Mountains and lives off the land. And this to me was, I wanted to be that person, And I started having this dream about wanting to do that, but for me, it was northern Canada for some reason. I don't even really know where that came from. Maybe just because it's such a vast wilderness. And I even wrote a story about it when I was like in 7th or 8th grade, about running away, living in the middle of nowhere in a log cabin in northern Canada. So it's kind of amazing how that came to fruition.
That should have been the foreword to your book.
Yeah, right.
You still had it. For me, I remember seeing or going to the museum at that age, and then learning about the Inuit and the native people, and thinking, that is a brutal life. That is so hard. How do they do it? And that's when I kind of got curious about northern Canada and what you need to do to survive. Even to this day, if there's a good documentary on YouTube, I will click on it, even if it's stuff I think I've already seen a billion times, just because I always learn something new.
Sure.
Usually I learn something new. So that's where I got a similar fascination. I think there was also some Disney made for TV, like nature things that would talk about land that wasn't in my backyard. And I had that fascination as well. I just like the creature comforts a lot. I was a computer nerd. When you were that age, say like 16, what besides loving the outdoors, what kind of kid were you? Were you like the jock? Were you the nerd? Were you?
I was actually, oddly enough, my senior year, I was voted most likable, which I really thought was a great honor at the time.
I think so, sure.
And I'm still flattered by it, but clearly I'm not getting all the girls by being the nicest guy, and you know what I mean? Like,
that's true.
It just comes with the territory. I was very much a friend to all, so I could very easily mingle in any of the cliques, any of the groups. I had friends in all of those places, because there was always something to kind of learn or to experience when hanging out with some of these different people, rather than just sticking with a certain clique. So I'm happy that things went that way. It was good.
It's that's one of the reasons this show exists, is because I love talking to people who have lived lives that I haven't. Even when I was younger, I would find myself, there's more gravity towards somebody whose life I didn't already live. Like, I know what it's like to grow up as this guy in this community. Oh, you're from a different country and you lived life like this? Tell me about it. Let's hang out.
Sure.
And that's I think that's a great way to look at the world, is like everything's a learning opportunity. Everyone, as long as you don't use them as books, but I'm quite upfront. Like, I want to talk to you because you did this. That's what I like about it. And then, sometimes you make friends and you always learn something anyway. The reason I asked that, though, about who you were as a kid, when you went away, I'm going to jump ahead and back a little bit. You went away. You're at 19 years old. You go away for a year. You're doing something that at that age to your peers had to seem a little out there. You come back. How did you see a perception of you change when you were back? When you were around those people again, a class reunion, or even bumping somebody into a store?
No, you mean how others perceived me?
Yeah, did you perceive that they perceived you differently?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think just because I think everyone was very much aware of the fact that I lived and breathed the outdoors. It was
like
part of my
naturally you
makeup.
did it.
And so I don't think there was any big surprise, at least amongst my peers, that I was, running off and living in the middle of nowhere. Now, for some of the adults, for example, prior to going up there, and this was a different time, 1991. I mean, you're expected, once you get out of high school, you're expected to go to college, and that's just what you do. There's no like gap year or anything. I mean, like,
you take that year off, you'll never go.
No. So when I would explain to people what I was doing, there was, I had to battle that a little bit, just to, because you're kind of breaking away from that. And immediately people are like, oh, you're, what are you going to do? You're never going to find a job, blah, blah, blah. And I think in the end, I made the right choice.
You made the right choice.
Yeah,
you made the right choice. I'm jealous that I didn't. I like the creature comforts too much. I just, I knew that I liked the idea of it. And to this day, I spend every other weekend in the woods, usually alone. It's a camper because now I'm old. But I'm surrounded by trees. I have to be. I love it. That's my Zen place. So that's when we started talking, that's why I was very interested in talking to you on the show, because I think a lot of people have this kinship, whether they can spend a year away or even a week sometimes, or even in a difficult environment at a certain age. Like, I know that there's certain things I will never do again, especially alone, because if I get injured now, or, it's a worse situation. So yeah, I think you did the right thing. You did it at the age when you could do that stuff.
Totally.
When you could hitchhike across Europe, when you could get lost in the woods, when you could,
right.
take a chance. That's the time to make the big mistake. And yours wasn't. Having read the book, yours, we will get into that because I think it changed your life in so many positive ways that
Totally.
I'm sure you're aware of, but that's what I got out of the book too. What I did want to know is before you went on a trip, we're about to get into the trip part. So how did you meet Doc Forgy? Forgy?
Yeah, Forgy. That's correct. So Doc Forgy, or Dr. William Forgy, but Doc, as he's called by his friends, he first off, he is a renowned author on the topic of wilderness medicine and also hypothermia, cold weather injuries, and things like that. And he built this cabin in the early 70s. He and I came to learn after meeting him, we have a lot of common interests. And Doc also, aside from being a physician, he's a hell of an entrepreneur. Like, he has projects going all the time. And he, again, in the very early 70s, started up a camping store that really ended up doing quite well. It was called Indiana Camp Supply. And because of my interest in the outdoors, I obviously visited this store quite a few times and ended up getting a job there. And the owner told me about the founder, Doc, and told me that the Doc had built this cabin in the middle of Canada. And of course, my ears perked up the second I heard it. And I was locked on. And one day, Doc came into the store, and the owner said, "Yeah, this is Doc." And I walked up to him. I extended my hand to shake his hand. I didn't even say my name or introduce myself. I just said, "I have to go to this cabin." That's all I said to him. And he said, "Well, we'll see what we can do to get you up there." And that was it. And I've later learned that if you show interest like that to Doc specifically, if you show that much interest, he will lasso you in and help you, point you in that direction. He'll help make that happen. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, he's one of those. He's an opportunity maker. But still, at the time, I'm thinking this is never gonna happen. And it was maybe about a year after that. I of course had met my trip partner Scott Power prior to this.
Yeah, can we go into how you met him? Or
yep, I actually met him at Indiana Camp Supply. So he was working there. I went in one day I was going on a trip to work with a group called the SCA, which is the Student Conservation Association. And so I was kind of preparing for this trip, and I went to Indiana Camp Supply. Scott was working there part-time. And at the time, he was preparing to go to the cabin with a large group, a group of kind of outdoor leaders, a group called the WEA, the Wilderness Education Association, with this group and with Doc. And this is 1989. This was going to be his first time camping in a tent. And when he got there, he was so struck by this place and by this cabin. And he mentioned to Doc, he said, I want to stay here. I want to come and stay here for an extended period. So, of course, again, as soon as I mentioned my interest to Doc was already putting the pieces together, I think. But anyway, Scott was telling me about his getting ready for his trip up to Canada, and I was telling him about my getting ready for going. I was going out west, and so yeah, that's kind of where we met. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then we get into Doc making this happen, and you getting the okay.
Yeah, so it was literally just, I got a phone call from Scott, and he said, "How would you be interested in doing this, in going and staying for a year in this place?" And I mean, without hesitation, even though I'd only known Scott like for a year and a half or so, we hadn't really hung out or anything.
Right.
But that's a good thing, because if you go up there with your best friend or something, you're not going to have anything to talk about. You're not going to, so it's,
He knows your stories.
yeah, all the stories have been told. And so so I immediately agreed, and we immediately began planning. So we had about a 2-year time period to really pull together the gear that we needed, and to also go through some really extensive medical training with Doc. Just because once we get dropped off there, we're cut off. There's no communication. You may be able to signal a plane, but that's a hit or miss. You just don't know. So we had to go through a lot of kind of medical training. And Scott and I also, in that 2-year time, we also took several smaller kind of trips just to see how we vibe together, and make sure that we're not going to get up there and
Kill each other, essentially. Yeah.
I didn't want to use that word because
yeah.
with the whole YouTube thing. But we, so we wanted to make sure that we worked well together, and we're both people that are very easygoing, and so I think that it was clear that we were gonna work well together.
Nice. Yeah. Plus, they have to have work ethic too. I couldn't imagine a worse trip than going to the woods and find. I don't really like chopping wood. I don't really like. Well, we have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
So after all this preparation, I have one question that I had throughout your entire book, and I'm glad I have you here to ask it. Have a great one. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Be safe out there. Treat each other well.